JSnip4 here, Realist News on YouTube. You remember a while back, some of my subscribers, maybe the majority of you, and people were like, "Oh, Joe, cover the Pizzagate, cover the Pizzagate. You know, a lot of things going on with that. Why don't you cover that?" And I think I responded by saying, I had maybe an epiphany or just something inside me prior to that telling me, the whole hoax stuff, hoax shooting, whether it's Sandy Hook or Orlando Pulse, all, that whole thing. Just anything I ever talk, just get rid of the videos. Get them off my channel. So I did, deleted them. And I said, there's a lot of people with the Pizzagate stuff that are really doing a great job at exposing that stuff. I said, I felt like, I'm just going to leave that one alone. Not going to get into that. Because I thought if ultimately just every great once in a while that I might cover something like that, the chances of it affecting me by the club shutting my channel down, website down, something, I said, something inside of me was saying, just leave that stuff alone. There's people who are going to do a way better job than you on that subject anyways, so I'm not covering that kind of stuff. And I think the only thing I did on that was I referred people to another person's video that did a great job on some of that stuff. That's all I did. And I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you heard of a website called naturalnews.com. And the guy was saying he was threatened by the club, essentially, to stop supporting Alex Jones or something with Alex Jones, Infowars. He decided, no, we're not going to do that. This is like blackmail, whatever. I'm not going to do it. Hit me. The guys apparently said, we're gonna hit you with everything we got. And he said, bring it on. And I guess they just brought it on because the entire naturalnews.com website has been erased off the face of the earth as far as the Google results go in the database. It's gone. So they got them. And again, I thought, would it be worth me, not to say that I'm on the huge radar of these people, my channel's not that big, but would it be worth me risking my channel getting shut down and then having to fight over it and all this crap because I decided to get on one very, very touchy subject that the club just didn't want me to get into, let's say. Not that I've ever been contacted by them, by the way. But I just thought about it. The day I can see where this is going, and I said it then. I can see where this is going. I don't want to take the risk because then I would not be able to give you the news, the other newsworthy stuff, things, financial stuff that I give you every single day. And for me, I thought to just touch on that every great once in a while, the pedophile, Pizzagate stuff, or other things that are highly, don't talk about that. I thought it's just not worth it for me. If I was focusing my channel on that kind of stuff to begin with, well, that'd be a different story. But I don't. So anyways, Natural News just got nailed. The site has now been removed completely out of Google. And they threatened him in advance. Work with us or we're going to give you everything we got. And he said, bring it on. In a matter of days, just a few days later, completely removed. He said they had it checked through the Google. You can submit a request through Google. Is my site using black hat SEO, search engine optimization tactics? And no, all looks fine. Essentially, the result was somebody manually, this wasn't an algorithm thing inside Google, some personnel within Google kicked your site out, essentially. That's what he said, the founder of Natural News. So I just wanted to share that before I get into this video. That is a prime reason why I've decided to focus on certain topics only, with the occasional little mention of something every now and then, but not like some of these other big sites are doing. And this just proves why I said what I said as being a good reason. Sure, it's not right, and you could say, well, fight them, but what if your channel shut down for a year or 2 years? Could you imagine the old Realist News channel being gone? Your daily routine or whatever it is, you come check on the stuff I say, it's just gone and you don't know where it went for a year to 2 years. It's just, again, it's not worth it. It's not right. I understand. I get it. But it's a good thing that I don't cover that highly, highly controversial stuff. I deleted any of the old videos I had that I used to talk about anything Sandy Hook or, nope, get rid of it. So I've got two things I want to talk about. One from the Sovereign Man through my email, the subscription. I mentioned this guy before, Simon Black, I think his name. Yeah, Simon Black. And once again, the Dallas Pension Fund which I've done at least 3 or 4 videos on in itself, that specific fund, back in the news. I'm going to save that one for last. But Sovereign Man, Mr. Simon Black, he says there's now 2 more major indicators of financial risk. And I spent the day today, I shouldn't say the day. I spent part of my day, when I normally look at just get my little checks on news, what's happening. I thought to myself, I was doing the big real estate thing with all the massive foreclosure bubbles on the map that is out of freaking control, the blue ones on Zillow. And I thought, let me do a little historical research on real estate boom and bust cycles. And it's for sure that there does appear to be an 18-year cycle of booms and busts. So if that cycle stays true, and it was on pause for a while, apparently from like the real big crash of 1929 to like 1955 or so. So there was like this pause all of a sudden. And after World War II ended, it started to kind of get back on track, but boom and bust of real estate. So, hang on, I got to sneeze. And let me just tell you something. You do not, under any circumstances, want Jason at 4 sneezing in this mic. It will blow your eardrums out. I get that from my papa. Papa Snip 5, if you will. So, I was looking at the cycle. Long story short, if this cycle holds true, the year 2025, and it's sometimes off by a year, plus or minus a year. So around 2024, 2025, maybe 2026, the next big bad bust cycle should be hitting in. My issue is that right now, with all these giant bubbles we're in, including another all-time high real estate bubble, I can't possibly see real estate climbing even higher and higher 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, to 2025 to have an all-time peak and then crash? Ain't a chance in hell. So I think the cycle has been disrupted. Number one, I think because of what we saw last time around 2008, fake numbers, pump trillions of dollars in the economy, and let's hope it works. It's not working. I've been showing you the numbers day after day. So I still stand firm in my thought, which is essentially the same as the web audit, of course. Real estate is going to be collapsing. And you can already see it in certain places. Again, that list I showed you on Zillow is absolutely shocking right now, because this means we should be kind of on the peak again and staying at the peak. Well, everything's good. Nope. Anyways, these 2 major indicators of financial risk, he says, this is starting to get out of control. No doubt you're familiar with the S&P 500, the stock index that measures the performance of the largest U.S. companies. And as we've discussed before, one of the most important benchmarks in measuring whether stocks are overvalued or undervalued is the price to earnings, or P/E ratio, P&E ratio. Looking back through more than a century, 100 years, right, of financial data, the long-term average P&E ratio for the S&P 500 has been about 15. And as of yesterday afternoon, the P&E ratio for the S&P 500 stock index reached 26.5. It's almost doubled from what the normal 15 is, right? So he says that's high, more than 75% higher than the long-term average. More importantly, since the 1870s, there have been a total of 3 periods in which the average stock P&E ratio was above 26.5. So wait a minute. Whoa, we've got some great data. Some unfudged, not from the government, in other words, data. Since the 1870s, he says, there has been a total of 3 periods in which the average stock P&E ratio was above 26.5. And that's where we are. So, boy, I can't wait to hear what he has to say. The first time was around the panic of 1893. The second was around the 2000 dot-com crash. And the third and last one was most recently the 2008 financial collapse. Do you see the pattern? Whenever financial markets get overheated, bad things tend to happen. It's also important to consider that economic growth worldwide has been slowing. Global trade growth, for example, is at its lowest level since the financial crisis. And in the United States in particular, GDP growth was just 1.6% in 2016. Absolutely dismal. In fact, the U.S. economy has gone 11 straight years without seeing what we would expect as the bare minimum, by the way, 3% GDP growth. So I ask again, if this real estate cycle, 18 years, the real big fall is going to be in 2025, we can't possibly go that long. The crash is going to be coming much sooner than that. And it's going to bring real estate down with it just like it did before. Slow economic growth is generally negative for corporate profits, so it's difficult to imagine phenomenal earnings with such tepid economic growth. As an example, HSBC is one of the largest banks in the world with operations in dozens of countries. 2 days ago, the bank announced that profits had plunged 62% due to slow growth and uncertainty around the world. That brings me to another major indicator of the stock market, something known as the Buffett valuation. The Buffett valuation looks at the total value of the stock market, relative to the country's GDP. Warren Buffett has called this ratio, quote, probably the best single measure of where valuations stand at any given moment, end quote. Right now, for example, the total size of the U.S. stock market, according to Federal Reserve data, is $22.6 trillion. Meanwhile, the total size of the U.S. economy is $18.8 trillion. This puts the Buffett valuation at around 1.2, meaning the stock market is about 20% larger than the entire U.S. economy. Historically speaking, this is expensive. Stock markets start getting into trouble when the ratio surpasses just 1.0. It's 1.2 now. The Buffett ratio was 1.11 before the 2008 crash, by the way. On top of everything else, as we discussed yesterday, many of the largest companies in the U.S. have been artificially inflating their stock prices. He has a link to that in this email. They're taking on billions of dollars in debt to pay out phony dividends and buy back their own shares. Well, of course, money's been practically free to borrow from the Federal Reserve. So these big giant companies, well, the interest rates are so low, we're going to borrow a ton of money and then make payments. Again, pay it back. It's like paying back free money. And some of that money we're going to use to pay back the dividends. Again, this is a gigantic Ponzi scheme and a gigantic book cooking accounting scheme. Okay? I've said it a million times. They're taking on billions of dollars in debt to pay out phony dividends and buy back their own shares. As an example, I just read an article in a major financial publication that General Motors is the best stock to buy. He says, really? General Motors made $16.5 billion from its ongoing business operations in 2016. But they had to spend an incredible $29 billion in capital expenditures just to sustain the business. So GM's free cash flow was negative. It was similar in 2015. In order to make ends meet, GM increased total debt by an incredible $40 billion over the last 2 years. This is seriously the best deal in the market, according to the financial experts. None of this adds up. He says, look, I don't have a crystal ball, and if there's one thing that's consistent about financial bubbles, it's that they can last longer than anyone expects. So yes, it's possible prices could go much higher. But is it worth the risk in light of such obvious data? Over the next several letters, I plan to present some actionable alternatives. I'm not willing to simply say, hey, the stock market is overvalued and leave it at that. Instead, I'll demonstrate some safe, compelling options where you can achieve strong returns without having to take so many absurd risks. Again, this is Simon Black with sovereignman.com. You can go right to that site and hit subscribe, and they'll send you stuff in your emails. Almost daily, but not always. The other thing let's talk about, let's go right into the pensions. Once again, the Dallas pension. Quick, look surprised. It's insolvent, and they need to, drum roll please. Silent drum roll. Okay, I'll take that. They need to tax the living crizzap out of the taxpayer because we ain't got enough money. ZeroHedge.com. Dallas Police Pension Board approves benefit cuts, asks for more taxpayer money to avoid collapse. For the past several months, we've warned that the taxpayers of the city of Dallas, despite all of the tough talk coming out of their elected city council members, would ultimately be forced to bail out the failing Dallas Pension and Police and Fire Pension, also known as DPFP system. And just last night, the DPFP board voted 9-0, All in favor, say aye. And all in favor said aye to approve a plan that would do just that. The plan to save the DPFP was proposed by Dan Flynn. Not to be confused with General Flynn, by the way. Chair of the Pensions Committee. I was going to say another association. No, just a committee this time. In the Texas House of Representatives, and calls for Dallas taxpayers to contribute 34.5% of police and firefighter salaries each year into the failing pension system, which is up from just 27% in 2015. Maybe I shouldn't say just 27%, because 27% is kind of a lot too. Plus an incremental bonus of $11 million per year. In total, the adopted plan will cost Dallas taxpayers an extra $22 million per each and every year. And having said that, the plan also calls for pensioners to grant concessions too, including the following. Increase the retirement age to 58 instead of 55. Now, hold on a second. Last time I checked, us schmuck consumers had to wait to 65. Or was it 62, and then it turned to 63, now it's 65, and some days, then it's 67. These guys were able to retire at 55 normally? Well, got to take some concessions. You got to work 3 more years. Okay. That's one thing. The other thing, increase in employee contributions to 13.5% of payroll from the current 8.5% of payroll. Elimination of COLAs or COLAs in the near term. Elimination of exorbitant interest payments made on employees' drop accounts, DROP accounts. Of course, the $7 billion shortfall in the DPFP triggered downgrades to Dallas's credit ratings on Moody's and S&P in recent months, or from them, which has wreaked havoc on the city's bond yields. Which means what? City has to pay higher interest rates. Which means what? Well, we're going to have to tax you jerks some more. Sorry. Not our fault. We didn't mean to do it. Meanwhile, no amount of incremental taxpayer funding will ever be sufficient to stop angry pensioners from playing the victim card when the realities of their pension Ponzi schemes are exposed for all to see. And per NBC5, there was a whirlwind of emotions at the meeting, from clapping to tears and obvious tension, both from board members and from those whose futures hang in the balance. I think we're being treated like animals to a certain degree, and I was hesitant to even come down here today, said Frank Varner, a retired Dallas firefighter. How do you fix broken promises? These people deserve better. The firefighters and officers working today deserve better, said Mike Mata, a Dallas police officer and president of the Dallas Police Association. I knew there'd be an association in here somewhere. Head of the president of the Dallas Police Association. Don't worry, dear pensioners, there is no problem too large for taxpayers to bail out, says Zero Hedge. Once again, taxpayers, you're on the hook. No, I didn't hear anywhere in here, by the way, about, listen, the whole thing of all you pensioners, whether you're police, fire, don't care, doesn't matter. All of you pensioners, the little trick you guys pull at the end of your tenure, in your last year before you retire, you like to work all the overtime jobs, get all the extra work you can get, so that year you make the most money you've ever made, and your pension is based upon the highest year you've ever made, so you get a larger percentage of a pension, a larger pension than normal for the rest of your lives. Where was that little piece in cutting that out completely where you can't do it anymore? Nope. Now we're going to keep that in place, and everyone's going to continue doing it. And we're going to have to come out here again and say, guys, the pension system is underfunded again, and we're going to have to jack the crap up on your property taxes, or maybe we'll add like Philadelphia, a beverage sugar tax to the tune of like 50% to help pay for these things, which, as you just heard the other day from me and Zero Hedge mentioning it, the companies now are firing people left and right, and the stores are suffering sales losses on other items, not just soda, because the people aren't even coming into the store because they want to go outside the city to buy their soda. And when they're at those other stores outside the city, they're buying the other stuff that they normally buy too. But the city thinks it's just a one-off event. It's not as bad as people think. It'll be fine. The pension systems from inception, like the banking system and the banks, are insolvent. By the very nature they work, are insolvent. Take care.